If you're running your bar and restaurant like you did 10 years ago, you're not old school, you're out of date. What is happening, Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. This is this week's shot. And this week I want to talk about the evolution of leadership, because I feel like our staffing crisis is somewhat of a leadership evolution problem. And until we fix that, no amount of training or amount wage increases, pizza pies is going to save that. And it's a big evolution of leadership into different mindsets. Now I try and push myself on a regular basis to listen. I like to listen when I'm working out or going for a walk or something. As many audiobooks as I possibly can about service, about culture, about the reason we do what we do. But I think one of the biggest problems is that the three hard truths is that we confuse authority with leadership. Most managers that are promoted in the industry are either the ones that work the most hours, that knew the menu and have been around forever, and that didn't quit. And that's not leadership, it's survivorship. And while this may work out 6 out of the 10 times or 2 out of the 10 times, we have people before we teach them how to lead humans. And we need to teach them how to be managers before we teach them how to lead humans, because leadership and just being there and being a presence is two very different things. So staff tend to comply with what this person's saying instead of committing to the mission statement of the brand. It's more like, I'm just going to do what you say because you're my manager, instead of committing to doing that because it's the right thing to do. We still mentor like it's 2008. This is a big one. This is number 2. This is number 2 point. We tend to mentor like 2008. Watch me figure it out. That's how I learned. And that is kind of leading to this trial by fire that tends to happen in a lot of restaurants. And I think I've talked about it tons of times. Systems relieve stress. More systems relieve stress, allow people to be creative, allow people to feel more comfortable in the space. And it's changed, because before you'd be able to take the time and go, this is the way it gets done. This is how you should do this. Learning standards have changed. It's sort of like an opposite to what we do at school. In school, gets put up on the board, we write the notes, and then we regurgitate that knowledge in a test or in a presentation or some sort of academia. And that is fine for that sort of style of person. But in this day and age, staff need context. They need feedback. They need to know why this matters. And a lot of the times it's intangible learning. It's the showing is great, but they need to really be a part of the process and understand the thought process behind things. A lot of people, and I've worked with both. I'm sort of like a Venn diagram of both. I've worked with people who can read a recipe and read techniques, and they'll remember everything like a robot. Then I know other people that I have to show a couple of times and explain to them why, and give them the why behind everything, because that context allows them to understand why we're doing this, whether it be service, whether it be prep, whether it be a cocktail, whether it be a new methodology behind prep or service. It's this context that really helps. A lot of the times, point number 3, we don't train leaders, we react to turnover. And so most leadership conversations only happen when someone quits, someone messes up, or someone burns out. And that's not development, that's just damage control. And I try and speak to owners more and more about this sort of mission statement and how to put that across and how to touch base. So we keep asking, why can't we retain staff? But we're not asking who's actually growing here, who's growing. And I've spoken a lot about turn and burn. I've spoken a lot about retention skills and service. So here's 3 solutions that I think you need to look at when it comes to these things. 3 shifts that actually work. Redefine the role of a leader. A leader is not the loudest, the hardest, or the most intimidating, and if you listen to my podcast last week, this is military style. This is how I grew up. This is what I have done in the past. And I still do to a degree when it's needed. And I think you need to have a different toolbox for different things. Your toolkit as a leader and a mentor should be very diverse and very different to different situations and different people. A leader's job is simple. Make the people around you them better than they were yesterday, which is something I live by. I try and be 2% better than I was yesterday every day. And every day I try and like better myself with a time off so that I recoup, eating a little bit better, so making sure I go to the gym, these sort of things. So this is what a leader should do, is making the people around you elevated up and lift them up so that they can push forward. And this means clear expectations. I do believe in a very deep job, especially for management, a very deep job description, which creates expectations and accountability. Consistent feedback, sitting down once a month, once every 2 months with your team and your managers, and just checking in and seeing how they're doing, making sure that the route that they're going on is what they want. Because this is the big thing as well, especially in hospitality. People get thrown into management jobs because of that, like they were here the longest, they worked the hardest, they know the menu the best. And sometimes the question of, do you want to be a manager, has never actually been put into their ears. Because they're there the longest, they sometimes think that's their next progression. Have you given them the expectations on what that progression means to you? Like, do you want this position if these are all the things I need from you as an owner or as a general manager? But the biggest question is like, do you want to be a manager? And this is something that doesn't get asked enough before management promotions. Do you want to be a manager? If you say no, that shouldn't be a negative thing within the organization. That should be a piece of awareness that you're like, okay, well, listen, I love being the floor supervisor. I love being the senior server. I love being a senior bartender. I love just running the door on Friday, Saturday nights because that's what it fits for me. Just because I've been here the longest doesn't mean I want more responsibility. They need to like really want to take that next step of management, and laying that out very deep job description and going over through it line by line and showing expectations and then accountability on what happens when you do or don't do this is the biggest thing. And then emotional control under pressure. Again, systems. This is gonna be my like mantra for, I'm gonna get t-shirts, systems, because systems create stress-free environments. And that's the sort of thing. If someone can't do that, they're not a leader yet. And that's that sort of mentality, okay? You can train people and bring them up and bit by bit, build them up. Sometimes you don't have that opportunity, but if you're sitting down with someone who's inside your organization or someone you're gonna bring in from outside your organization, and you don't have that super deep job description, expectations, and accountability form, you're not gonna get someone who's gonna be right. I had a conversation with someone who was looking for a food and beverage manager recently, and they've got a big retail section, they've got a distillery, they've got a cidery, they've got a whole bunch of different little things, and this person has to sort of like know about all of them. And the people they keep hiring are just like, they want to be restaurant people, and that's great, but the restaurant is only 25% of the entire business, and focusing just on that 25% is making the rest of the organization lackluster. And so this is where the expectations and accountability comes in, and it's something that really needs to get nailed down. If you're a manager in your organization and you feel like there's some friction between you and the GM, between you and the ownership, I would personally write a job description for yourself and, hey, ChatGPT, write me a job description for this job at this venue. And then sit down with ownership and go, do you feel like I need to do more than this, less than this? Is this about on par? So that puts your mind at ease about what you're expected to do and what your accountability for all that stuff is. Because that's the worst thing, is like, oh, you didn't get that number for me for inventory. Well, I didn't know I needed to. Well, you should know. Assumptions. Assume makes an ass out of you and me. And finally, turn mentorship into a system. Mentorship is sort of seen, especially in hospitality, as like vibes-based, and it needs regular check-ins, it needs skill benchmarks, it needs defined growth paths. And if that's you working with someone who's not in your organization, I sit down with a lot of young bartenders and managers and sort of give that sort of direction. You need to do that. But if you're mentoring someone inside your organization, the regular check-ins, the skills benchmark, that thing that I wanted you to learn, have you learned it? Do you need help with it? And define growing paths is a big one. Not one day you'll manage, but here's what level 2 looks like. Here's how you're going to get there. And this is a big one. It's just like, you've got to sort of set this up so that they're comfortable, you're attaching their needs. I see that everything in the hospitality industry is a long game, and people is your most valuable asset long game, and it's something that needs to be like attached and sort of systemized so you can build them up. Like one big thing that I'm doing is that I've got 10 audiobooks, 12 audiobooks that I'm going to be passing on to management consultings that I'm going to be doing fairly shortly. And there's a book for every single month. Every month we'll sit down as a group, talk about it. There'll be a little questionnaire. I want you to fill that out. Come to the group prepared. Let's sit down for an hour and talk about what we got out of this and how we can implement some of those things from the audiobook. Because I feel like once you get training done to a bartender level or a bar manager's level, you sort of stop. How do you grow from that like mid-management sort of up? And audiobooks and educations and seminars and going to shows and going to conferences and seeing these things is that next step. And I'm trying to build that next step for me. I've got the bar manager down stuff. I'm trying to build bar manager up to GM stuff now. Lead in public, coach in private. Wow, this is a big one. In public, praise, recognition, and wins. I try and do that with my teams all the time, like congratulate my teams. I praise my teams on text messages. If we had a big week, anything like that, I always like Sunday afternoon say thank you so much, guys. Usually when I'm unwinding, I'm very grateful for the week we just had, and I try and message everybody and go, you know what, guys, having a cigar, thank you so much for everything you do for me. I really couldn't do what I do without you guys. So praise, recognition, and wins are a big one. In private, accountability, hard conversations, and that's a big thing as well. So like for me personally, mentorship is a very personal thing. Whether I'm being mentored or I've got a mentee, that's a very personal thing. You'll never see that on social media or like outside of the talking about it in the podcast. You'll never see it like, oh, I sat down with such and such. That's not my public persona. Like those sort of meetings and those sort of collaborations are very private. And you need to have those hard conversations in those, like you can't talk to that person like that. You can't do that. That needs to be a bit tighter. You got to have those sort of accountability conversations when you do it in private. So you got to be public with the wins and private with where you need to be where deficiencies are and how to fix those. So the tone sets the temperature of the room and every single shift. And geez, if there's people who still listen to me who have worked with me in the past, I'm not perfect at this. And I'm fucking happy to say that I'm not perfect at this. I sometimes let what's happening in the outside world bleed in. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm trying to get better. It's not always the easiest thing because this industry has given me so much and I'm grateful for it, but I've sacrificed a lot for the industry as well. So there's this sort of challenge and fight on the mentalities of these things. And I try and get better, but I'm always trying to get better. And here's the question you want to sit with. Who are you actively developing right now and how would they know it? If the answer is no one, that's your starting point. Is there a manager in your organization? If you're a GM or an owner, is there someone that you could take under your wing? Just take them for coffee. Take them out for a beer. Sit down with them at work. Like really just try and nurture these people because these people, especially managers, they cost a fortune to replace. Managers cost the very, very most to replace. So don't lose your managers because all you're doing is this turn and burn again. Leadership isn't about holding the line. It's about building the next one. And so it's that, okay, we've got to this laurel, and I always say don't rest on your laurels. What is the next laurel? What is the next laurel? What is the next, where the goalposts do move and the line does move. It's not in a negative way. It's that constant, like, we have done this, where are we on to next? We've done this, where are we on to next? And you can't do that as a leader with people behind you, not walking, like not you, what was the analogy? You can either pull your staff or you can push your staff. So if you're the guy who's sort of leading, pushing your staff over those lines and then say the new one, going, this is what we're going to do next. This is what we're going to do next. This is what we're going to do next. So I hope the evolution of leadership is changing the industry. Like I hear horror stories from young bartenders from people they see as mentors, which is horrible to hear. And I wish I could do more. If you feel like you've got people in your organization that you could be helping, definitely just touch base with them and go, hey, what's your goal? Like, I'm always interested in what my staff want to do next. What's their 2-year plan? And that may open up a whole doorway of stuff, whether it be, I'd love to start traveling. Okay, well, what you get vacation time coming up? What if I hook up a stage somewhere and you go work somewhere in a Michelin star restaurant and go check out that and see what, bring me back stuff, bring me back ideas, bring me back stuff that they're doing that we can do ourselves. And so these are the things. And if you feel like once you get to a stage in your career and people start reaching out to you, then always have an open door policy and go, yeah, we can grab a coffee and let's chat. Let's shoot the shit. I try and do it the best I can. Sometimes I don't have time. I try and like make sure that I have time in the way of opening those doors for people who may need a question or a query. But the evolution of leadership, I am old school. I've been doing this almost 30 years. So if you're still leading the way you were 30 years ago, there's something fundamentally wrong with the way you do things. And if you've got high turnover, it's probably a reason. If you're evolving your leadership and you have low turnover and you feel like you're doing anything wrong, I hope this episode gives you a little bit of a push maybe in a direction that you haven't thought about. The audiobooks, every time I mention that to managers, they're like, oh my God, audiobooks is a great idea because you can buy them, pass them on to the staff, and away you go. So guys, as always, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. The post shift shots are going to tighten up and get a little bit more structured as I go. Thanks as always for listening. See you soon. Bye. All right, post shifters, that's it for now. Keep your standards high, your spirits neat, and your team tighter than your forecast. Catch you next week on the Post Shift Podcast.